What comes to mind when you think of the Chicago River? Anyone, just shout it out. Gross. Dirty. Of course, St. Patty's Day. She had a fun time there. Where thousands of people come out to the Chicago River to admire its beautiful green dye. And of course, beautiful rusty seawalls. They give you a nice visual when you're kayaking in the summer on a nice warm day. And trash, although hard to mitigate, it's something that we must be conscious of, and it has a soft spot in my heart for. Rivers and lakes have redefined some of the most amazing cities in the world, and our home city, Chicago. But it's time to start looking at them as logistics routes and a place to transport goods, because we have an obligation, and more so an opportunity, to renaturalize our natural world. My story starts 4 years ago. I had left a company that I started with some friends from high school, but it wasn't giving me the impact that I really wanted in my work. And so on this journey, I met Nick, who had the same passion in doing something that really had a difference to make. And we were really obsessed with hydroponics and vertical gardens and growing plants in all types of places. So we thought, what could we do with that? Well, first we thought we can do hydroponics on rooftops of grocery stores and sell it to them. It's a brilliant idea. Problem is, too expensive. And we definitely didn't have that type of money. And so we started learning about the Chicago River and what could be grown on the different places of the Chicago River. And we thought about industrial hemp and switchgrass. We can create biofuel feedstock for the Chicago fleet of municipality cars. Well, in an environment like Illinois, it's very political. But the thought of growing plants on the Chicago River was wild and crazy, and we were hooked on it. But we couldn't think of the right thing to do. So we went to the drawing board. Literally, that is a real throwback right there. And he mentioned that he grew vegetables with river water in college. I was like, fruits and vegetables in the river. Maybe not a market that we can get into, but definitely very interesting. So we thought about what research groups we can go out to and different organizations that we can link up to. And we wanted to do research with never really doing the research. And we wanted to grow plants in the river that, for us, we never have done that before. So it really was hard to do and hard to execute. But through the river community, and fate would strike, that we met Josh, who was doing a thesis in his master's program of growing plants in the river, proving that plants could survive and they could thrive. And I knew that moment when we met at La Colombe coffee shop on Randolph Street that the fate of the Chicago River will never be the same. And collectively, a group of us founded Urban Rivers, focused on revitalizing the urban riverways through conservation, technology, and design. And to prove to the communities and to people around the world that what we see right now is not the future that we want it to be unless we take it into our own hands. And so this small 60 square foot garden is where we started off with. It inspired us, it gave us creativity of maybe we could build a park full of these floating gardens. Maybe we can create a destination that's not just for sewage and for boat tours, but something greater. And so for the next 24 months, we would leverage this garden to showcase to supporters and donors and community members that we in fact can not have 60 feet, but 600,000 square feet of floating gardens. And so we got interns and different designs and long nights at coffee shops and long nights in each other's basements and trying to figure out what would the community want from a park that'd be on the river. Or to be stairs that are shaped like mussel shells to pay homage to the Chicago history. Or to be floating barges or places that we could listen to music on the kayak, something that never been done before. But before we can really go that route of building something of such magnitude, we had to start at a very granular level. So we started doing DIY projects. DIY project number 1, the honeycomb, made from recycled pickle buckets at Whole Foods. Definitely lacks design, but I learned that we couldn't scale this idea. And so we did DIY project number 2, known as the Fitzcarraldo. And whoever knows where that's from definitely gets bonus points. And this proved many things. Number 1, DIY project couldn't scale to a park level. Number 2, well, we had our first ever riverponics test where we actually had a cherry tomato sprout. And that proved that we needed to go back to our roots of the floating garden concept to really scale this concept out. And so we took our project to the streets. The Kickstarter community. So we gathered our resources, we made a video, we said, well, let's put this vision to the test, let's put this to a bigger audience, see what is possible. Are we just a bunch of crazy guys and girls that want to create this park for ourselves, or do people really want it? And so we got 3 times our goal. We had partners such as Patagonia, Whole Foods, Subaru, Google, believe in this mission. So fuel with $100,000 in our pocket, ready to hit the water, ready to design something? Oh, it's not that simple. We have to go through a permitting process. U.S. Corps of Army Engineers, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, the Chicago Department of Transportation, the property owner, and the Coast Guard. A project of this magnitude takes immense resilience and persistence. And there was some resistance based on the fact that, they didn't believe in the project. They just had never seen a project like this. They didn't know how to mitigate the liability. How do they insure it? How do you protect it? How do people not slip and crack their head? These are all things that came about. But we pursued and we pushed on because the idea that we could do something was greater than something that we couldn't do. And so we, last summer, put the largest floating garden install in Chicago history. That 60 square foot garden turned into 1,600 square feet. 50 different varieties of plants, a 95% success rate, and more volunteers than we can handle. So the idea is that the community did want a park on the river. They did want a destination. They did want a place that just wasn't full with rusty seawalls. That was a place that they can control and they can take the future into their own hands. And if we break down this first section a little bit further, we had a bird platform. We had a place for pollinators and monarch butterflies, and we even tripled the size of the river ponics system. Now, I'm not saying we're going to sell these at the local farmer's market, because we did get it tested, and they're not safe for mass consumption, although they do taste great, and plenty of people here can attest to that. You know who you are. But it expanded the creativity that what can be done in the river for the future is not what was known before and what we expected. We have to change our expectations of what's possible. And so as we get this process of how do we build a park on the river? A park. Even though the Chicago has an amazing park system, this is something different. We focus on a wildlife first design approach. That we have to think about what was and what is and what can be from an ecological standpoint. And not just to bring people to the river, but to bring the river to the people. And not be separated by concrete and steel, but to have a relationship that is very intimate, that you can't get in other parts of the country. And so as we further our journey to build a park on the river, we are always pushing the limits on design, and we're always pushing the limits of what can be, and always thinking what's possible. And so we have a term at Urban Rivers called habit-hacking. You know what that is? Oh. Hey, you never know. But habit-hacking is taking a concept that improves the environment on a small level, with a little bit of design, a little bit of research, a little bit of technology, and showcasing it on a small level. Because remember, we started with a 60 square foot garden, and we went to 1,600 square feet. And soon to 6,000, 60,000. And so this year, we're planning to do a floating tree concept and a floating walkway. So this is our floating tree. Now you may think to yourself, 2 trees in a river. It's not a lot. But we start with 2, and we go to 200. We go to 2,000. Because how can we know that the design impacts the ecology? How do we know the design is scalable? How do you know the design looks good? You don't just throw something out there and just be like, okay, yeah, great, floating tree, But this is supported by National Geographic. So they want to see something that is scalable. We have partners that we have to build a relationship with and our community. And also moving forward this year is our floating walkway, which breaks the norm of our relationship with the river. So we're not separated by just river walk and concrete, but your walkway is on the river. And we look at this walkway in different chapters or different rooms. As we move forward, we have the wishing pool where you can wish for more wetlands and more walkways. The wet prairie, it's always important to have a prairie section because, for those who know, Illinois is a huge prairie, one of the states with the largest square footage of prairie, and we're making big efforts to protect it. And the floating classroom. It's not just about our generation, it's about the ones that are coming behind us. And we're partnered with Shed Aquarium and the British School to build curriculum so that generation can build their future and they can raise the bar and their expectations of what a river should be, not what a river was and what we thought it should be. And so they can learn and they can experiment and they can test and they can have a hack all day and for the generation after them. The kayak launch. So you launch off the river, you stay on the river and get back on. You don't touch the river walk, although it's beautiful. It's about creating that relationship that doesn't exist. Although the city has an amazing park system, this is something that's unique. The floating island. This is another really amazing concept. Remember I brought up the wildlife first design approach? Well, this is something that's unique because you can have plants, you can have the areas of the root systems for the fish, and then you can have a catfish anchor system, creating habitat on every level, and even benthic installs on the river floor. We don't need to get too technical, but it's creating habitat on every tier of the river. And that's how you reverse the thought of it being smelly and the thought of it being dirty and the thought that you can't swim in it. Because if we think that way, then we're never going to change what the future will be for the river. And the yoga deck. For those who like to be inside, that's great. And you go to the park, but maybe you can go on the kayak, do yoga session, and then kayak to your office. Why can't that be the norm? Why can't that be something that you do? And so what's the future? Oh, you can ask yourself that question. Because I can't be the only one that answers it for you. But what I do know is that we want to finish this Wild Mile by 2020. And we want to showcase to Chicago, its residents, its visitors, the nation, and the world that what we expect of our rivers today should not be what we expect for the future. Because we need to reverse the narrative. We need to change our perspective. So when you walk to the river in a couple years from now, you see thousands of people walking to it, it's not because of the green dye. It's because of the immense amount of greenery that exists. Because only us in this room, and the generations behind us and ahead of us, can really change the future of our river. Thank you.